reading this morning is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, beginning at verse 30. Jesus and his disciples left that place and went on through Galilee. Jesus did not want anyone to know where he was, because he was teaching his disciples. The Son of Man will be handed over to men who will kill him. 3 days later, however, he will rise to life. But they did not understand what this teaching meant, and they were afraid to ask him. As they came to Capernaum, they were going indoors. Jesus asked his disciples, "What were you arguing about on the road?" But they would not answer him, because on the road they had been arguing amongst themselves about who was the greatest. Jesus sat down and called the 12 disciples and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must place himself last of all and be the servant of all." Then he took a child and had him stand in front of him. He put his arms around him and said to them, Whoever welcomes in my name one of these children welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes not only me, but also the one who sent me." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Keep it simple. Or what is it that they say? Keep it simple, stupid, isn't it? Keep it simple. Now, before we start saying anything else, I think Sonia is likely to be watching this in the next day or two, assuming the thing goes through and everything goes right. So I thought it might be quite nice if we all said, "Hello, Sonia." Good and loud. So at the count of 3, we'll say, "Hello, Sonia." 1, 2, 3.
Hello, Sonia.
She can't miss that, can she? Right. Well, at reading, have you noticed how often Jesus turns things upside down, doesn't do or say what you'd expect? He may answer a question with a question, often does, or turn the whole thing round so you see it differently. Not what you expected at all. Take this time. Mark tells us about when the followers of Jesus have been arguing about who will get the top jobs, the best perks. Well, they'd given up their normal lives as fishermen or farm workers or whatever. And they all expected Jesus to be crowned king in glory, to reign over all the earth. And of course, they expect to be an important part of it. Well, that's normal thinking, isn't it? So, who's going to be first next in importance to Jesus? And then the next? And so on. What are they going to get out of it? I expect some of us, most of us, all of us, we've probably done or thought a little bit along the same sort of lines sometimes, haven't we? But Jesus doesn't tell them off, does he? He certainly doesn't talk about pecking orders or who takes first place after him or what special perks they might get. Oh no. He reaches out for a little child, takes him or her in his arms and says, "Whoever welcomes one of these little children welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes God." That's it. Nothing about special privileges at all. No rewards for good behaviour. So what does that all mean for us? I've got what's called a Serendipity Bible with questions after each small passage, ideal for home groups. First question in this section is, if you could capture one quality you had as a child, what would it be? I thought and went back to my childhood world, long time ago. What was most precious? Oh, my teddy bear called Ted, of course. We had, anybody else have a teddy bear? Yeah, I expect so. Yeah, most people, or the girls had dolls, or both. And then books, like the famous 5, Biggles, or Worrells of the WAF for girls, Just William, Swallows and Amazons. Then I had a football and a cricket bat and ball. And one very special present was a toy theatre. And this theatre had a little stage, curtains which you could draw, scenery, characters which you jogged on and off stage, and a few pantomime style plays. I got friends to come and watch as audience. I'm not sure whether they wanted to or not, but they came anyway. And I put on the plays with high and low voices for the different characters. Then later, I made up some plays of my own. My first venture into story writing, and it was wonderful, very special. And in those early days, we had faith. We believed what we were told, didn't we? At the age of 5, Mum took me to one side and told me that if at any time I saw a plane in the sky above me, and it looked as though it might be an enemy plane, then I should move quickly, dive into bushes, or better still into a ditch, and lie still with hands covering my head, and then I'd be all right. Made sense, yeah. But I thought I should practice. At the bottom of the garden, years ago, someone had dug a hole and nobody had ever bothered to fill it in. So I thought, that's ideal. And we had some big lumps of chalk and flint around the garden. So I hurled some up, dived into the hole, hands on head, like Mum said. Then one came down on my thumb, which was on my head. Dr. Potter came later and gassed me. And when I woke, what was left of my thumbnail had disappeared. That was the end of my practice sessions. And in our local park, we had a large bomb crater, which provided many happy hours for our mob searching for shrapnel. Our inventive abilities for the bits we found were amazing. Bit of a Heinkel fuselage, we'd say, looking at the remains of an old tin of Heinz baked beans. Anybody want to swap? You'll all have your own very special memories of childhood days, won't you? But then, what do you think Jesus was trying to tell his followers when he picked up that child? What did they need to learn? Well, one particular quality of a child could be innocence, the simplicity of life, where you don't have to choose and you believe what you are told, the wonder of life. But a child is not important in the world's ways. A child doesn't make big decisions. A child is dependent on others. And maybe Jesus is talking about people who we do not consider important. Those who may be impaired or handicapped in some way. Or us elderly people. What can we do? But Jesus says we're all equally special and wonderful. To see a child or anyone not rated in the top line, that is to see Jesus. And seeing Jesus is to see God. Some of us may have had an experience, or perhaps more than one, when we really felt that somehow we saw the face of God in some unlikely and unexpected way. Anyone feel that they might have had such a vision at any time? from the simplicity of a child, it gets complicated, doesn't it? We discard some of our early beliefs, like Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, an Easter Bunny, and with the changes, we may lose Jesus at the same time as yet another myth. Hopefully, we return to Jesus at some later time with a different outlook as we grow up. And then we pick up attitudes and prejudices. We want more for ourselves, more perks, more rewards, like those earliest followers of Jesus who expected the top positions when Jesus became king and ruled the world, expecting miracles of healing and transformation. As his closest followers, they should have the best, shouldn't they? That's what they thought. Special miracles for those who really believe. And often, you know, that is still expected. Equal love, equal treatment like everyone else's. That's not God's way, is it, they say? Wouldn't be fair to us, would it? Remember the musical South Pacific? Yeah, most of us remember that. There's a very strong message there against racism and prejudice in all its forms. Remember the words, sung, I think. You have to be carefully taught to hate all the people who are different to you in race, colour, religion, political agenda. Remember that? Very brave words those were in the South Pacific in a time of so much racism. Faith in a living, loving God can change to stark religiosity with its creeds, protocols, structured prayers, and so on. All very different from the simplicity of a child of God. We need to return to simplicity, a simple faith, one church. To live for each other is to live for God. That little child is the image of Jesus and the image of God. Jesus tells his followers and us, if you want to lead, you must be a servant king. You know, the best team captain helps his or her team players, covers for them when necessary, and encourages each player to work for each other. 11 players as a team together can often defeat 11 much more talented individuals. We'll soon sing the Servant King, and when we do, think about what it says, for it means much to us, and perhaps think, Servant Captain. So to our church. It's not made up of perfect people. They'd never have me in it for starters, nor most of you, I reckon. All of us, probably. We all have our dodgy bits. Every Sunday together, we say a collective, sorry, we'll try to do better. But it doesn't always happen, does it? We're all human. Now, back to that vision I mentioned before, where maybe we catch a glimpse of the face of God in some totally unexpected way and time. I have probably told you this before, but for me it's worth repeating again and again. For me it's so special. In years gone by, I used to run an auction on Fate Day for an assessment and rehabilitation centre. One time, the auction had finished and it was time to go home. Then I heard some beautiful singing. Sounded very much like Dionne Warwick. So I walked in that direction, turned the corner and stopped in amazement. There, on a little stage, stood a girl, hunchbacked, very, very handicapped, you would say. You'd say, oh, poor girl, how sad. But she was singing her heart out, and she turned towards me, and I saw her face. Such joy, such incredible joy. I've never seen anything like it. I felt for sure that I was looking at the face of God in this girl who had risen above all her handicaps. The memory stays with me forever. One child in the arms of Jesus, one girl with a handicap, and a song. Welcoming them is welcoming Jesus, and in turn that is welcoming God. So you know, we're all God's people. What we need is not special privileges and advantages, but quite simply to be caring, to be kind, to look after each other in loving togetherness. And we can all do that, can't we? With the simplicity of a little child. On now, in a moment, to sing the Servant King. And what does that say in the start? It says, from heaven you came, helpless babe, entered our world, your glory veiled, not to be served, but to serve, and give your life, that we might live. Amen.
Amen.